Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
So this is it. Hello. Welcome to the 18th episode of A Couple Takes on MS. This is Dan Digman.
And this is the other half of the couple. This is me, Jennifer Digman.
Thanks for joining us here on our show. Just a quick rundown, just so you know, we are a couple living with MS. I have relapsing remitting MS.
And my multiple sclerosis is secondary progressive.
And today what we want to do is talk about a great new, if you haven't heard about it, it's called IQity.
And they have a test to diagnose multiple sclerosis quicker. And I guess my first question is to Dan, how was your diagnosis for multiple sclerosis, or what was that experience like for you?
I had like symptoms. I went, and I think,
how old were you?
I was probably like 20. I was 27 when I was actually diagnosed, but I think I had symptoms that happened where I had numbness in my torso and my hands and everything, and it was kind of written off by my physician as something that, like when I was leaning over, I'd have this shocking sensation down my spine, and he said that it was because
Because you were a little chubby. Let's be honest. You had a little gut and your doctor just explained away your numbness.
Yeah, and so then like a year later, I started having more numbness, and that's when they did all the other testing. And after I went in for that, it was probably about like 5 or 6 months later that they formally diagnosed me. But at that point, it was about a year and a half, 2 years since I had first said that about, and it ended up being Lermit's symptom that went down my spine. So yeah, it was about a year and a half from like the first symptom to formal diagnosis. How about you then, Jennifer?
Well, I was 23 years old when I was formally diagnosed, as I've probably told you all. It was 8 days after I turned 23. And that was back in 1997, so oh good heavens, that was 20 years ago. But I was in college and working at the time, and I had on a pair of really horrendous shoes, I guess.
They were fashionable.
They were fashionable.
Stylish.
It was the 90s. And I went to my doctor because I had numbness in my foot. And I vividly remember saying, look at your shoes. If you had more supportive shoes, your numbness would go away. And sure enough, I bought more supportive shoes, and probably within 3 weeks, my numbness went away. So that was in the fall, or fall of 96. And then in May of 97, as I was graduating from college, I went back to the same primary care physician and said, okay, now I have crazy numbness in my right hand. And she said, oh, back in the day we wrote in blue books and you had to handwrite a lot of your papers. She said, I bet the stress from graduation from college and the writing, doing all your homework, that once that's done, your numbness in your right hand will go away. And sure enough, in another couple of weeks, my numbness in my right hand went away. So that's May. And then in November of that year, I had double vision, so I couldn't see very well. And my left eye wouldn't abduct, which means like it wouldn't move from side to side. So I was like, sure enough, that's a big deal. And I remember I was living in Detroit, in the Detroit area at the time, and I made that 50-mile drive up to my mom and dad's house in tears, driving like a little old lady, just like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? So I went to see that same primary care physician who was like, uh-oh, this is kind of a big deal. I'm going to refer you to an ophthalmologist, who broke it to me that it looked like multiple sclerosis. And then, sure enough, I saw a neurologist who on November 14th diagnosed me with MS. So that was what, like 15 months from the first numbness until my diagnosis.
And then thinking of that, we each had about a year and a half, 2 years between early symptoms to formal diagnosis. So
and that's like a year and a half where you're just questioning what is going on with me, and am I imagining these symptoms, or what am I doing to make these symptoms?
And how much would it have benefited you to have gotten a diagnosis sooner?
Well, I think the peace of mind, I mean, as horrible as it sounds, and I'm not sure if any of you out there feel this way, to get my MS diagnosis was somewhat a relief, because when I did see the doctor for that visual problem, he said at first, like the ophthalmologist said, or it might have been my primary, one of the doctors that I saw at that dreadful time said it's either a brain tumor or it's multiple sclerosis. So when I got the actual diagnosis, I was relieved. I was like, oh, phew, it's not a tumor, and it's something, in your head, if you're all doing your Arnold Schwarzenegger impression, it's not a tumor. Sorry, that was just a silly joke. But, that it wasn't a tumor and it was MS, so I was kind of relieved. Were you relieved?
I was very relieved, and it's weird. I think when it was initially said I may have MS, that was more devastating the actual day of diagnosis, because at that point I knew I had more control now, because I could start treating and start taking disease-modifying medications and everything, and that's where, but during that time for diagnosis, we had to go through, back in our day, and probably still today, things with like a spinal tap, and you had to have like a second
and you had
symptom.
to think that you were crazy, like, oh, what's going on? Am I imagining this numbness, or is it really that big of a deal? And so then you're wondering, is it a horrible disease, or am I making this all up? Is it all in my head? And so to get the definite diagnosis of multiple sclerosis was relief. And that's interesting, because
what we're talking about now, I mean, just giving some background on our diagnosis, but there is a new RNA-based blood test, Isolate MS, that is there, that would use machine learning technology that'll help doctors to rule out other diseases and stuff, but to make a formal MS diagnosis within a week, a blood test where within a week they can tell with more than 90% accuracy whether or not you have multiple sclerosis.
And we think that's pretty amazing, is because back in my day, granted that was 20 years ago, and with you it was 18 years ago, but that year and a half, think of how when we presented those first weird symptoms of numbness, to have a doctor be able to use a blood test to definitively diagnose multiple sclerosis, that would have saved us a year and a half of time. And maybe the course of my disease would be different, and perhaps it wouldn't be, but I will never know, because this test didn't exist. And it is being released from IQity, which is the company that has released this test.
And just for transparency, formal introduction, and everything. But IQity actually started. It was done through research that was being done at Vanderbilt University several years ago, and as they started to see the influence and effectiveness of this blood test, they were like, can we take this and go make it available to the general public in terms of the testing? And that's where they just started this year, making this available to physicians and doctors to make this diagnosis. And Jennifer and I are actually on patient advisory council
that's the
for
transparency
that we're on the patient council, just in terms of giving perspectives.
We're not paid or anything. We just fortunately were able to have an incredible weekend this past weekend in Nashville, where we learned more about IQity and their incredible blood test. And we just thought it was worth discussing with you because, again, I can't imagine having to wait as long as we did, knowing now that a blood test to diagnose multiple sclerosis exists. And the company, again, is called IQity, and that's IQUITY. And
check them out. Check them out on the web and it's IQUITY.com. So it's IQUITY.com, just to learn more, because we're not the most scientific people, but you can learn more about how this blood test is done and where it's going, because it also has implications to other chronic diseases like
IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or irritable bowel disease, and fibromyalgia. So it has a lot of implications with the autoimmune community, and that's why we think it's worth talking about. Just what incredible technology, and what an amazing, incredible breakthrough in the 20 years since we were diagnosed. And I just factor you in with the 20 years because you're a writer.
You round up.
And you would say that nearly 20 years in your sense, but for me I would say 20 years. So I think it is worth talking about.
And so again, we encourage you all to go online and look at IQUITY.com just so you can know more about this. And just think what that would have been like had you gotten a diagnosis of MS sooner. And the other thing too is with that blood test, it either can diagnose you for indeed having MS, or it can rule it out to see, and you can get treatment for whatever it else may be.
Yeah, for example, if you had Lyme disease, which sometimes can mimic symptoms of multiple sclerosis, or any other disease, because I know in Dana, my experience leading a self-help group for the National MS Society, that there have been one, if not two, members of the group who don't have that definitive diagnosis of MS, where this test would give them an indication if they have MS or not, so that they could start moving in the right direction to take care of their health as best they could.
And I think really in addition to learning more about the blood test and IQUITY, we were there in Nashville with like 12, 13 other patient activists and advocates who are fellow bloggers and everything. And the cool thing about it too is that two of the people who are there also have shows here on the MS&Me radio network.
And it was so nice to meet them in person. Because you can know us and we can know someone, but nothing is better than a face-to-face meeting. And we were so lucky and had such a nice meeting with Beth from Modern Day MS and Caroline from The Girl with MS. And yeah, she's as beautiful in person as she is on the website. Sorry, I just had to say that. Didn't mean to embarrass you, Caroline, but...
And I think it's, check out...
And Beth, you're beautiful too. I don't want to leave you out because it was an amazing meeting with both of those women who have multiple sclerosis and have so much to share. Besides their beautiful outside exterior, they're beautiful inside.
And I think to go to the MS&Me Radio Network show schedule so you can check out the timing for when their shows air regularly. So it was great to see them.
And what are their shows again, just so we can give them a little plug?
Modern Day MS and Girl with MS to check them out. And that's also the name of their blogs. So check out their blogs, check out their radio shows here on the MS&Me Radio Network.
And while we're giving them plugs, if you're ever curious to see Dan and my lovely mugs, check out our blog at danandjenniferdigman.com.
We've been talking about like switching the name of that though to a couple takes on MS.
Yeah, I mean that might be a fun switch, with the new year. Maybe shake it up, see what, if this is our radio show, maybe that can be our new identity. We'll just be a couple who takes on MS.
That's us. But the cool thing with the whole weekend, and not only meeting them and meeting so many other people, I mean, Matt Cavallo, and he actually is with the Patient Activation Network, and he has his own blog and website, and he's a great activist. I mean, there's so many other people. I mean,
Yeah.
Dave from Active MSers,
Yeah.
and
We could go on. That's like, there was Cog Fog talked and joked about a lot this weekend. And since we just got home like 12, 15 hours ago, I think maybe our brains are a little tired, but we met Stephanie and Dave and Matt and Beth and Kim. And
what we'll do, I mean, just so we don't leave anybody out, go to our website at danandjenniferdigman.com and look there, because we'll have a listing of everybody that was there, their blogs, as well as because we did a Facebook Live feed through, it was Kathy Reagan Young from
yes,
FUMS.
and she was there. See, how could we leave her
See, I
out?
was going to say. And
Because she gives everyone, not everyone, but she gives multiple sclerosis the middle finger. And one of the cute things about the weekend in Nashville is she gave all of us an orange middle finger, like a, what would you call it? Like a rubber...
A finger cap.
A finger cap, that's
Is that what it
it.
was?
So we all could wear orange on our finger to give MS the middle finger. And she always has orange nail polish on her middle finger because she's very, very strong believer in just telling this disease where to stick it.
And so, but with that too, this is, and something we wanted to share with you all because you weren't there, is just with that, just talking about the trends and just different developments in the MS world beyond the acuity blood test. I mean, what we talked about was just the innovations in rehab.
Which was very important because, as I'm sure you've heard me talk ad nauseum about how important physical therapy is. And so we had this wonderful physical therapist named Jennifer Meyer who spoke to us about the importance of exercise. And she really, really talked about ways that everyone can get more activity and the importance of keeping moving and just the different tools we could use to keep moving and the rehab approaches to MS.
I think that was the big thing that I learned was just another reason as to why I need to exercise, how it improves your brain and improves everything else.
And it improves your feelings, emotional and physical. I don't know if any of you out there have noticed that you get a little boost mentally and physically when you exercise. I mean, initially you may be tired, but afterwards, when you get in sync, where you start developing an exercise routine, you do feel that endorphin rush, and it's very important because those of us living with multiple sclerosis, we can use any of the help that we get, anything to help us, and if it's not something you have to put in your body, it's even better. And by the end of Jennifer's discussion, Dan was pretty sure that we had to buy a dog. So he had a reason to walk more. And we're not advocating that everyone go out and buy dogs, but it is important to walk and to be physically active.
And so that was really good. And I think the other thing that really blew my head apart was with Ram Sarang. Well, how do you pronounce his last name?
Sir.
Saram. He is from Professor of Neurology and Immunology at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And I think what was cool was just he was talking about treating progressive forms of MS and the challenges and opportunities, because I think so often a lot of the new medicines that come out and treatments are designated for people like me with relapsing remitting MS, but leaving people like Jennifer with progressive forms in the dust. And so this is like talking about where they're going with that research.
Yes, and I think what was really neat is Ram kind of heard the very end of Jennifer's talk about the importance of exercise, and Ram was really excited, dovetailing off that, because he was talking about progressive MS, and he just kept stressing the importance of exercise, and then it really made a big difference. And so Dan and I, again, as soon as Ram got finished, I was like, maybe we should get that dog, just so that we have a reason to continue exercising or to start exercising, just because that will make a difference in the course of our multiple sclerosis.
And I think it's just like, building up the core strength, because obviously you can't go out and walk with the new dog we're going to get.
And, oh yes, we've moved on to we are going to get a new dog. But now that you say that about the core, that was the principle that Ram thought was the most important, was strengthening that core. As I'm sitting slouched over and I'm a little short of breath, I realize that I do need to work on strengthening my core, because that will help the breathing, and it will, we took a different wheelchair of mine this weekend because it's a little smaller and a little easier to travel with, but it does not have the side support. So I had to work my core to maintain upright posture. And again, that could be why I'm a little tired today, but it did show me how much I need to continue working on my core and how important it was.
And closing out then the symposium, we heard from Daniel Cantor from the Division of Neurology at Florida Atlantic University, and just talking about social media and MS and how we can, connect. We all can connect with our communities, and so it's just a matter of not feeling so isolated and individual and alone when you're dealing with multiple sclerosis. Just getting online, getting on Facebook, getting on social media to make those connections, so that you're getting answers to your questions and you're feeling engaged and interactive.
And it was interesting that our fellow blogger Stephanie, who had talked about Pinterest, and how Pinterest, there are some really good tips and articles that she shares and links to Pinterest to help the MS community. So there are a variety of ways to get involved and engaged in social media. And that is what Daniel was talking about, besides Facebook and Twitter, he was also discussing, Pinterest and just all the different aspects or avenues where you can be connected with your fellows in the MS community.
And you can learn more about Stephanie on her website. It's Just Keep Smiling.
See, I had the cog fog, so thank you for reminding me about Stephanie, because she's amazing.
You can count on me, because she has lots of other great articles, because she writes for so many other media and everything. So check her out. But again, now we'll come back to ours, because we will put on our website, danandjenniferdigman.com, how you can reach out to all these wonderful bloggers and voices in the MS community.
And our last episode 17, we had talked some different things, and I said I was going to share some links on our website, and bad Jennifer, I didn't do that. So maybe in our next blog we can share some of those links about some of the things we talked about in episode 17. And then we can also share the wonderful hosts and people we were engaged with in Tennessee this weekend. But in closing, we want to thank IQity.
Yeah, IQity, and Dr. Chase Spurlock is the CEO, and he was with us throughout the entire weekend. And it was just phenomenal. I think one of the greatest things, or a highlight.
Oh yeah, we're not closing without mentioning the Cirque du Soleil show that we saw at the Grand Ole Opry. So we were very lucky, and it was very amazing, and it was a Christmas spectacular, a nice, fun holiday show, which stresses the importance of enjoyment and just like, I don't want to say mindlessness, but just getting away from your multiple sclerosis, even if it's an hour and a half fun show at the holiday time. I thought that was really important.
Well, and I think, and that too, I mean, just talking with this, I mean, we went from Michigan to Nashville for this, and we had, there were lots of transportation issues when you're dealing with, wheelchairs and everything, and
accessible taxis, and some taxi cab drivers, and some cabs that you think should be accessible but unfortunately are not. But we managed to muster through it, and we had an incredible weekend. And you can't let MS hold you back. And if you surround yourself with others in the MS community, good times are bound to happen. We had never met these individuals face to face, but we had an incredible weekend. I'm speaking for you, Dan, as well.
But I did.
Yeah, we had a great time, and it was very fun. And I'm sure there's going to be many a picture on our social media sites about our good times at the Grand Ole Opry, and with the patient experience, with the symposium, with IQity.
And I think that it is just one of those things. You just keep going, keep doing and looking, because without connecting, we would not know about IQity, and that's why we're so happy to share that information with you. Granted, a lot of us, we've already been diagnosed with MS, but we're the ones who can be speaking about this and increasing awareness about this type of tool, that because it's not the only thing to diagnose MS. There's still other avenues like the spinal taps, like the evoked
potential, and not every insurance will cover the IQity blood test at this time. But it's worth learning about, and if your insurance will cover it, great, and if not, you just have to push for it if you need this kind of test at this point in time. But the quicker you can be diagnosed, the sooner you can start disease-modifying therapy, which Dan and I are big advocates for, because this disease is in your body, but you need to do the best to control it. And we really hope that you exercise and take your medication. And thank you for joining us today to hear all about our Nashville experience and the great work that's being done.
And thank you all again, because you can check us out on our website. Again, it's danandjenniferdigman.com, or on Facebook or on Twitter at danjendig. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good week.